So I'm going to talk to you today about a rootstock variety trial that we have that is ongoing at Jim Lloyd Butler's ranch over in Saticoy. And this trial was established in 2012, and it's on 5 varieties and 9 rootstocks. And at the trial site, it used to be a lemon grove, and they came in and they shredded the lemon trees, and they used the lemon trees as mulch. I can tell you that makes wonderful mulch. We still have, 12 years later, there's still lemon tree mulch left. And the other thing is that the trees are planted on berms and maybe a little bit higher from where I'm standing now. Okay, so that's the background of the site. On the second page, we're looking at what I call canopy volume. So what is canopy volume? Canopy volume is the area that the tree is occupying. Okay, so here, just to give you an idea now, well, let's look at the variety results. We see in this, the Hass is significantly larger than everybody else in the trial. In 2023, and if you look at the right, it's always been bigger than everybody else. The second largest tree is Carmen. Not surprising, because Carmen is a bud mutation of Hass. The next one is Lamb Hass. And the 2 smallest trees are Gem and Reed. Now let's think about this. So here is a Hass tree planted in 2017. Look at that is the volume, the space that tree is occupying both by height and width. Here is a Gem tree. These trees were planted, I think, a year after these. Okay, but so there's only 1 year difference between these. And you can see the canopy volume of Gem is different. Now let's look, these are all Lamb Hass. Those trees are 4 or 5 years older than these. And so you can see those trees are comparable in size, but these are older trees. And these trees have been pruned. Okay, so the concept is canopy volume. I want you to bear in mind, remember these trends in canopy volume, because on the last page of the handout, it's very important. If we look at rootstocks, you can see there's not as much difference, but there's a big difference that Stedham produces the smallest tree. And if you look at here, if you can look carefully, if you're not colorblind, you can see that the Stedham, almost every time we've measured canopy volume, is the smallest tree. Okay? And the largest trees numerically tend to be PP40, PP45, and Uzi. Okay, Dusa also produces sort of an intermediate sized tree. Okay, so there is some effect of rootstock on how big the tree gets. And you know, that is a breeding goal of Dr. Montesalva, is that there's 2 ways genetically to make this tree, which you consider as a factory, more efficient. One is by the sign variety being a smaller variety, which we have when we think about Gem. And the other thing is by manipulating that by rootstock. And the apple industry has a wonderful series of dwarfing rootstocks that they use to make the top of the tree smaller. So the ultimate goal is to come up with a great combination of variety and rootstock that you could plant if the trees were cheap, okay? If the trees were cheap, think about planting 2,000 trees per acre and maybe getting 30 to 40,000 pounds. That's what they're doing on apples. That's a long-term goal. I mean, it may not happen in our lifetime, but if we want to have an avocado industry for California, that's where we need to be going for the future. Okay. Now let's look at the next side. This is how much fruit we picked off the trees. So this is a cumulative yield, so you can see that there's alternate bearing going on because the colors of the bars vary. But you can see, if we look at the pounds per tree, Gem has the highest numerical value, but it's not significantly different than Hass or Lamb Hass. So over the course of all the years that we've collected yield data at this site, there's no significant difference between Gem, Hass, and Lamb Hass. But Gem is more productive overall than Reed and more productive than Carmen. Okay, that's what you get from looking at those little letters. And you can see that Hass lambhass and reed are not significantly different from each other. So even though you could look at the reed bar and say that's a lot lower, doing the statistics, because that it takes into account the variability from tree to tree and from year to year, there's no difference. If we look at rootstocks now, if we look at the right-hand side for pounds per tree, you can see that in this trial, the most productive rootstock by pounds per tree is Duke 7. That's a shocker to me, but that's what the data is. And the other ones that are, but it's not significantly different than Loyola, PP35, PP40, and PP40, and Sedum. So you just need to look at the letters and think about that. But to me, think about it now. We looked at canopy volume, and Sedum is the smallest tree, but it's in that top tier of statistics. Okay, it's giving you two productivity metrics to consider. So this, on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side of these two graphs is the most important of the two. This is yield efficiency. How much fruit do you pick out of this factory per cubic meter of tree versus this factory? And is there a difference? And sure enough, when you look here, who is the winner? A clear winner in this trial. GEM. It means it's a more efficient factory for producing fruit for you than Hass. Okay, and if kilogram, it's producing about 8 pounds per cubic meter of tree. Yes.
I don't see Toro Canyon.
Toro Canyon, when we put this trial in, I consulted John Mengi, and Toro Canyon didn't make, we only had room for so many rootstocks, and if I was to do the trial again today, I would put Toro Canyon in, but if we were going to do, we were talking about putting out some new trials like this, and Toro Canyon will definitely be in there. We have a trial from 1986 to 1996 that I had with Gary Bender and Guy Whitney that was down in Irvine, and we had Toro Canyon in there, and Duke 7 and Toro Canyon were the two top producers. There was no significant differences between the two, so that I would suspect that if Toro Canyon was in here, it would be up with Duke 7. So I just want to finish here, is that you can see that GEM is a more efficient factory, and then look at the rootstocks. You can see that even though Sedum is a small tree, it's right up there. It makes a tree, regardless of the variety, that is a more efficient factory. So you need to be thinking about these things.